So he does have kind of a war wound there. That was from a rock.
Yep. These rocks that are right there, just like inches underneath the water. And then it's like maybe 1.5 feet or 2 feet down to the bottom, the mucky, the mud that I don't want to put on.
Black mud?
Yeah,
the black mud.
Some people put on their bodies, but I'm not going to.
Okay, so you're going to go rinse off.
I'm going to go rinse off.
Okay. Hi, and welcome back. We're bringing you yet another installment in our Israel videos. It was a 2-week trip.
Yeah, and there's a lot that happened every day.
Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface, believe me. I mean, we're really only able to bring you just about a fraction of what really happened, but we're going to give it a go. So in today's video, we're going to do days 4 and day 5. And those days include Masada.
Yep, and Qumran. Dead Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Zaccheus Tree.
Oh yeah, the Zaccheus Tree, and we finally get into our first real day in Jerusalem. So lots and lots in this video, so let's get started. Day 4 of our Israel adventure began early with breakfast at the Oasis and then back on the bus to head for our first adventure of the day, the Zaccheus Tree in Jericho. Now, if you don't recall the account in the scriptures, let me refresh your memory. Luke 19, 1-10 tells us the story. In Jericho, there was a man named Zacchaeus who was chief of the publicans. Now, if you haven't heard of publicans, they were tax collectors, and pretty much everyone hated them. They were usually Jews who chose to work with Rome to exact taxes from the people, and they were quite often rich, making them even more hated. So Zacchaeus was not a popular guy. But Zacchaeus had heard of Jesus, along with everyone else by now, and when it was known that Jesus would pass through Jericho, Zacchaeus wanted to meet him. Verse 3 tells us Zacchaeus couldn't get through to see the Savior, quote, for the press, meaning the crowd was too big, and he was, quote, little of stature. Jesus stops by the tree, looks up, sees Zacchaeus, and invites him to come down, for he wants Zacchaeus to host him and his disciples for a meal. What? Zacchaeus is thrilled and receives the Lord joyfully. To those that grumbled that the Lord was hanging out with sinners and publicans, those of little stature, Jesus said, "This day is salvation come to this house, for so much as he is also a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost." So this tree, though clearly not a 2,000-year-old sycamore tree, enjoys the adulation of tourists as being representative of the tree Zacchaeus climbed, reminding us that none of the Father's children are little in stature. From Jericho, we drove the roughly 47 miles to the Jordan River and the approximate site of Jesus' baptism at the hands of John the Baptist. Now, obviously, we don't know the exact place where this happened, but there are several theories as to why this particular area is a strong possibility. Directly across the river, you can see another platform. That is Jordan over there. There were armed guards on both sides, preventing any unauthorized border crossing. It is worth noting that the scriptures say Jesus came from Galilee to Jordan to be baptized of John. That is a distance of between 70 and 90 miles depending on where he started from, and that was walking, in not ideal conditions. He was determined to fulfill all righteousness and be baptized, even though he had no need. Another great lesson for us. From the River Jordan, we traveled an hour and a half south to Masada National Park, the site of the Jews' last stand before Rome conquered them in 73 to 74 AD.
There are 2 ways to access Masada today. You can climb the switchback snake trail to the top, which takes about an hour or to an hour and a half. It is strenuous and is often closed during the hottest parts of the day. Or you can do what we did and take a cable car up to the top, which only takes a few minutes. Masada is an uplifted plateau about 64 miles southeast of Jerusalem that provides natural defensible cliffs from 1,300 feet on one side to 300 feet on another. Around 35 BC, Herod the Great built 2 elaborate and well-fortified palaces on the top of Masada. This was a retreat of last resort in case the native Jewish population ever rebelled. He only occasionally visited the palaces during his lifetime. Much of the palaces have been destroyed by earthquakes and the ravages of time. However, several painted walls and mosaic floors of the palace have been uncovered, showing still vibrant colors 2,000 years later. The complex also contained barracks, storehouses, and cisterns for storing rainwater. There were 3 narrow paths that led to well-fortified gates. In 66 AD, the Jews revolted against the Roman Empire. Over the next couple of years, the Romans took most of Israel back, and in 70 AD, they laid siege to Jerusalem, and after a few months, they burned and totally destroyed the city, including the temple. There were 3 Jewish Zealot strongholds left after Jerusalem fell. The last one to be taken by the Romans was Masada. A group of Zealots had captured it early in the revolt and held it until 73 AD. At that point, the Romans laid siege to it and built a siege wall around the entire outcropping so no one could escape. This siege wall is still clearly visible, along with the forts that housed the Roman soldiers. Their attempts to attack the fortress were repelled as the Zealots threw large stones down on the Romans. The Romans determined they needed to use a siege machine to take the fortress, so they built a siege ramp to one of the gates, then moved the siege machine up the ramp, where they used a battering ram to open the gate. When the Romans entered the fortress, they found that fire had been set to everything except the food stores, and 960 men, women, and children were dead, with only 2 women and 5 children alive. Josephus reported that a mass suicide had taken place.
A 45-minute drive up the shore of the Dead Sea brought us to Qumran, the discovery site of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Qumran is an important archaeological site located about a mile from the northwest shore of the Dead Sea. Today, it is managed by Israel's Qumran National Park, but 2,000 years ago, it was thought to have been a community of Jews known as the mystic sect of Essenes. There is a wide variety of opinions regarding who this community really was, or what they did, and how they lived, but they did leave a treasure trove of scrolls that were discovered in late 1946 or early 1947 by a Bedouin boy searching for a lost animal. The scrolls themselves are now housed in the impressive Shrine of the Book Museum in Jerusalem, most of them having been restored to some extent and translated. I have put links in the description. The site itself consists of a series of walkways where you can view the remains of ancient life, including cisterns, ritual baths, and much more. It was very interesting, especially seeing the cliffs and caves where the scrolls were found. Personally, I can't imagine how anyone would have been able to even get up there. We headed out from Qumran to Kaliya Beach on the shore of the Dead Sea, about 10 minutes away. Some in our group, Derek included, headed off to the changing areas to get ready for the big float in the 35% saltwater Dead Sea. Now, we live near the Great Salt Lake in Utah, and it's only 27% salt, so you can see that the Dead Sea is the granddaddy of them all. We were told beforehand, no splashing, no swimming, just go out to about your knees, sit down, and float. Well, as you can see, it was a little easier said than done. Is it cold? Is it cold?
It is a little bit cold, yeah.
Okay.
Not warm.
No, la cámara ahí.
There he is. He got it. All right.
You float much higher.
Yeah,
I don't float well, and
that's true. You don't float.
I don't float well, and I floated very easily.
Yes.
In the Dead Sea.
And now you're done.
Now I'm done.
Okay. There is a bit of a carnival atmosphere there, not unlike any beachfront, but this one had camels. By late afternoon, we were heading back on the bus and heading to Jerusalem in the Olive Tree Hotel, where we would stay for the next 5 nights. Good morning. Today is our first day in Jerusalem, or the Jerusalem area. We are actually going to Shepherd's Field and Bethlehem.
Looking across the valley from Shepherd's Field, but it's across the valley looks more like maybe what Shepherd's Fields would have looked like at the time of the Savior.
There's a small church on the property with lovely acoustics, inviting all who enter to sing. We then stopped at the Church of the Nativity and the adjacent Chapel of St. Catherine. Both lovely and interesting spots. The narrow and crowded streets of Bethlehem were made even more so by the Palestine Marathon that was happening right when we were there. It was really fun to see all the people having such a great time. Once back in Jerusalem, Alam dropped us off at the Sheep Gate and we walked down to the ruins that had been identified as the Pool of Bethesda. If you recall, this is where the Lord found the man who had been infirm for 38 years and lay by the pool waiting for the angel to, quote, trouble the waters. The superstition at the time was that the first person who got into the pool after the waters were troubled would be healed. This man could never get there fast enough, though, because he couldn't walk. When Jesus came along, he healed the man here in this place. Today, the level where that would have happened is far below the current ground level, but you can clearly see the ruins and imagine what that would have looked like. Our next stop was the Lion Gate in the Muslim quarter. This is where we walked the traditional Via Dolorosa, or the road where Jesus walked as he carried the cross to Golgotha. At the end of the Via Dolorosa is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, again a site where some faith groups hold Jesus was crucified and was buried. The construction of these narrow streets and how they are used by pedestrians, golf carts turned work vehicles, bikes, both regular and electric, and motorcycles was pretty interesting too. You'll see that the streets have a combination of steps and ramps. This is so vehicles can zip up and deliver whatever they need to in various shops and homes situated there, and people can walk on the steps as well. Our final stop of the day, for which there are no pictures, was the Muslim quarter shops. We were too busy spending money to take pictures. In particular, we went to Ali Baba's, two shops across from one another, owned by father and son, Omar and Shaban. They are great people, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time there and would highly recommend a stop at Ali Baba's. Out of respect for the Jewish Sabbath, Latter-day Saints hold their church meetings on Saturday as well, so the next day would be our Sabbath, and it was, for us, by far the most memorable and sweet day of the entire trip. So there's that and so much more coming up, and we know you don't want to miss a thing. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Give us a thumbs up if you like the video and ring the bell to get notified.
You bet. And until next time, restless friends, you take care.
Bye.